Well, it's time for a station break to some of the regular content to address a mild controversy that I saw in the comment section from, I think yesterday is when this erupted. Something about, there were a few different people that were critiquing my use of euphemisms for certain words like kill, murder, suicide, things like that. And the reason for that, and then I explained this, and I was told that no, I was incorrect. I was told my position that I'm about to tell you now, and that no, I'm just trying to protect my ad revenue. Now, for the record, my ad revenue is barely enough to cover maybe a couple of my bills. YouTube revenue is not what it was a few years ago. The bigger issue is strikes against your channel. Now, if those of you that have a YouTube presence, and especially if you have a YouTube presence that has attracted any kind of attention, you're going to know what I'm talking about here, because there are getting a video demonetized happens all the time. And sometimes you get limited monetization for a video that has controversial subject matter in it. But there are times when you get a strike. Now, a strike can happen because you use someone else's material. That's typically where you get a copyright strike. Let's say if I upset Warner Brothers by using a large chunk of Batman movie without permission. And people do that sort of thing all the time, use copyrighted material, and they do it in creative ways. They reverse the image and do all kinds of stuff to get around that. But that is a copyright violation, and that results in a copyright strike. Now, I've had 2 strikes against my channel, and 3 strikes and you're out. 3 strikes and they really don't even give you a warning. Your whole channel comes down. And again, this is a very different thing than having your videos demonetized or even having your channel demonetized. So I wanted to go through some different words and things of why that's important. So first off, let me explain a few. When my channel, I could say just about anything I wanted on this channel prior to 2023. Prior to that, some of my earlier reviews, wasn't careful with my language at all. And as many of you know from following this channel, I originally started this as a way to catalog my book collection for my children, because I have an insane book collection, and I wanted my kids to be able to go back through my videos someday and figure out kind of my worldview based on my books, and figure out which books were which and which, some of the books, if you were just to look at some of my shelves, I've got some crazy books. And I want my children to understand that just because I got a book on my shelf doesn't mean I have adopted that ideology or that philosophy. Sometimes that is reference material in support of research I'm doing on something totally different. And I say as such in a lot of my videos. So when you go back and look at my earlier content, you'll see that a lot of this is just very bare bones information about a particular book, so my thoughts about it, why I got the book, where I got the book, things like that, things that would be of interest mainly to my children. And then, of course, a lot of you found the channel, and I appreciate that, and it has grown tremendously. But please understand when you're watching this channel that the whole channel is the product of something really intended more for my children, and I'm thrilled that it's found a wider audience. That's great, but just understand that that is the genesis of this channel, and this was never intended to be some big money-making endeavor to review books. That was never my intent. And again, go back to my early content and that will be painfully obvious. Now, because in 2023, I attracted a lot of very negative attention, and I'm about to get into that. But as soon as I started attracting attention and was getting noticed by, I would assume, people with some influence, that's when crazy things started happening. And one of the things I discovered is I visited the property of this gentleman pictured here on this cover, which his face is obscured, but you can see the name down there. That name right there, that is a name that if I say that name, if I'm on the Jimmy Dore show and we're talking with Whitney Webb about her books, probably not going to be that big of a deal. But in my case, I visited one of his properties and did some extensive talking about some of the anomalies with some of that case and some of the things, some very specific details on that. And after that, some very strange things started happening on my channel and in my personal and business life. So I learned really quick that that name, that guy right there, and visiting property, making field trips, and doing more than just pontificating about this on a YouTube video is a lightning rod for some crazy stuff to happen. And those of you members, if you haven't found that stuff already, I've moved that into the members section just for my own personal privacy and to prevent any more craziness. Then, of course, we get into any critique of Judaism, Zionism, but specifically Judaism and the Talmud and things like that. You're walking on thin ice. Again, there's a lot of those things that I was talking about in older videos. Nobody cared. But as soon as I started getting noticed for other things, I had to start being very careful how I talked about some of these subjects. And this, of course, is, this really isn't intended to be a video about books, but I wanted some guides so you can know where some of the kryptonite is, where YouTube is concerned. And then in 2022, I believe it was 2022, around February or March, I think it was March or early April of 2022. So before things got weird for me personally, I got an email about talking about Russia and the war in Ukraine. And there were very specific rules. Now that was an instance where, and that was before anything got weird on my channel, just to be fair here. This was just a warning shot to literally everyone on YouTube that had, by that point, my content, I think my content was monetized by that point, because I think that was the point of the email, was to say, if you say X, Y, and Z, and I've read this again, I think I've got some older videos where I got that email and I just read it on a YouTube video. If you say these certain things about Ukraine, your channel will be demonetized, so watch out. So anyway, and I've talked about this book elsewhere. This, of course, is Extending Russia, Competing from Advantageous Ground. This is a Rand Corporation book about the subject that was paid for probably with your tax dollars, about how to bait Russia into a war, or and wear them down through a proxy war. And gee, it might wind up, possibly starting World War III, but aw shucks, sometimes you gotta break an egg to make an omelet, Now, this is where we start to get into the comment that was made was basically saying, why are you using these euphemisms for, like, instead of murder, you're using like self-delete and unalived and things like that. Well, the problem comes when you start discussing these very controversial topics and you're using certain language. So my first copyright strike that I got was for reviewing this book. And this, of course, I'll have to look back and see. I think this actually happened right around the time that I visited this guy's property that I was talking about. And I reviewed this book, and it was up for maybe a day or two. I think several people were commenting in other videos saying, hey, I saw the deal that you had a new review, and I went to go watch it, and it's already pulled. This resulted in a strike, not demonetization or anything like that, but a strike. And again, 3 strikes and you're out. And I was told the official reason, and again, there's a video where I just did a screenshot of me going through copyright school on the members section, where I just explained that process. But I was being accused of a copyright violation, but a book review is the textbook definition of fair use. So you can't get into a copyright issue for reviewing a book, because there are specific allowances for that. That's how we have Siskel and Ebert reviewing movies and things like that. That's how you have an editorial page in a newspaper. All of that stuff is done under fair use. But this book by this author, this is one of those words that you can't say. And if you say it, you're probably going to have, in fact, if I say it in this video, I will probably have this video a strike from that. And the interesting thing is, and then I did a follow-up, I did another video, something totally different, because that one, unfortunately, I can't post this, this review at all. And this book, really the material in this book is not that much different from a lot of other material I have. But this author, referring to her, talking about that situation is potentially lethal for your YouTube channel. So it's kind of this weird cloud of certain things. When you use certain words, when you're talking about suicide, and when you're talking about people, especially if you're talking about a suspicious suicide. And I'm going to go ahead and do it in this channel. I've got my channel has a clean bill of health right now. So if I get a strike over this, it's definitely going to prove my point. But when you are using these terms, obviously there's a lot of true crime channels that use things like murder, use words like murder, suicide, they were killed or whatever with no problem whatsoever. But when you start using that language in relation to some of these controversial topics, the overlords at the YouTubes will swoop in real fast. So, and this is another one. So this is a book that is readily available on Amazon. You can easily get this, but I can't say this name. If I say the name of the book, this video will receive, I know, will get a guaranteed strike. And what it will get a strike for is for inciting violence. And that's the hilarious thing, is just talking about this book, again, just reviewing this book, which is not a call to arms or anything like that. It's purely, in fact, this book doesn't even reach any hard conclusions. It's more just a catalog of the events surrounding this episode of history that happened in late 2016. So whether or not you agree that there's any merit to this, it doesn't matter. YouTube will give you a strike for inciting violence for talking about it. Now, I'm sure, as somebody was saying, oh, there's other channels that talk about it or whatever. Well, good for them. I don't know what their secret is, but I can tell you from experience, and I've got the screenshots to prove it. In fact, I think it might even be in some of my posts, in an older post, I might have a screenshot of it where they said I was inciting violence. Now, here's the really hilarious thing about that. I'm going to try to keep this video fairly short because this is basically just to refute what I consider kind of a silly complaint against me and my channel. So this got me not a copyright strike, but a strike for inciting violence. So I'm literally calling people to violence by merely discussing this. Now, previous to that, I had discussed this series of books by John Minery, and I believe John Minery's nephew is a follower of this channel, and he might chime in. He was kind enough to contact me and give me some interesting information about his uncle. But this is How to Kill by John Minery, and this is 2 volumes of it. This is, oh goodness, volume 3, and I'm not sure which one this is. This might be volume 1. But I've reviewed these elsewhere on the channel, so I won't waste your time with that now. But the fascinating thing is, these books are literally a guidebook to physical violence. This is literally how to do exactly that in this book. And you have to pick up a copy just to check out the veracity for yourself. But it is exactly what it claims to be. Whether or not the guy was experienced doing the things he describes in this book, I'll leave it to his nephew believes that he was. So, but this book got me a strike. Reviewing these did not. So I find that very curious. This has political implications. This has real world violence implications. So I thought that was very curious. And then finally, anytime we're discussing the topic of abuse of children, and especially I'll just go ahead and say it again, since I'm already walking on thin ice having said all the magic words in this video. Ritual abuse of children is that when you start talking about that and then you start saying all these other words, that at the bare minimum is going to get your video demonetized. But more than likely, if you're talking about that a lot and you're using very plain English terms, and I'm not talking about graphic accounts of bad things done to children, I'm just talking about if you're just broadly speaking about certain cases and things like that, that's where those keywords can be used against you. So this, of course, is The Assault on Truth by Jeffrey Mason, or however you say his name. Excellent book about Freud's seduction theory and how that was manipulated to create a very predator-friendly climate in psychotherapy. But I hope that clears it up. Probably didn't, but I thought it was good, at least worth a try, because I think it's important to understand. I know first time I heard somebody use the self-delete or somebody unalive themselves, I was like, why are they doing that? And then I started to get caught up in those gears myself, and I learned that, yeah, that is a very real thing. And it goes way beyond monetization. I mean, videos get demonetized and you're never even told about it. I've got a couple of videos that I put up with ads on them, and after they had been up for about a day, they were demonetized because I was talking about these kinds of topics. And so that's really almost a non-issue in the grand scheme of things. If you're saying those words and you are discussing a controversial topic, one that is really not supposed to be talked about, then rest assured you are most likely going to get a strike. And in extreme cases, as Patrick over at the Program to Kill channel, and I think I have his linked on my homepage, Patrick had an excellent channel that he had built up over years, and all it was old news footage that was all being used under fair use, but he was connecting a lot of dots, and a lot of times he wouldn't even talk about it in the videos. He was just merely playing the old newsreels, and he was saying none of his stuff was even monetized, but he eventually had his whole channel deleted and had to start from scratch because of exactly that kind of thing. Now, again, this is not my day job, so if I lose this channel, it would be sad, and I wouldn't want that. I don't want any strikes against my channel. I'm overlords. I'm trying to be a good boy, but at the same time, I know a lot of you, this is where you go to watch your videos, so I put this out there. Maybe at some point in the future, I might fire up on another platform. I don't know. Right now, I just don't have the bandwidth to do all those things at one time because I'm just a guy recording book videos in his personal library. So just remember that when you're watching my videos and you're like, man, the camera's too far away, or he's got his mic on his shirt or whatever. Just remember, I'm one guy, and this originally started as a personal project for my children. So again, I'm thankful for the audience. I love that you guys have found this, and I've found a lot of kindred spirits through this channel. There's a lot of you that I'm happy to call friends, even though I've never actually met you in the flesh. And a few of you I have. I've actually made a road trip at one point to meet up with one of you, and it's always good to actually meet in the real world people that share your thoughts on some of these things and be able to discuss those candidly outside of the interwebs. And I really appreciate that. So please understand when I'm using those, as silly as some of those words might be, my intent is not to speak down to you or protect my wallet or anything like that. This is purely because I want to keep the videos going, and I don't want to have to fight off strikes on my channel. So anyway, I hope that clears things up. But I'm going to leave it right there. Whether it did or not, thanks for watching, and I'll have some more book reviews soon of just some of the other stuff that I've been wanting to review and just need some time to get around to it. So bear with me. There will be more just straight up standard book reviews. So thanks again for watching, and to the members out there, thanks for supporting the channel.